There is a number that defines everything happening inside the Cleveland Browns organization right now. Not the $230 million, not the $80 million cap hit, not the $86 million in dead money coming in 2027 and 2028, not the $49.5 million they just committed to an offensive lineman, not even the $17 million they spent yesterday on a linebacker who was once claimed off waivers for nothing. The number that defines everything is $6,000. $6,000. In 1958, in Weber City, Virginia, a man named James Arthur Haslam II, Big Jim to everyone who knew him, used $6,000 to buy a single gas station on the side of a highway. He did not have a business empire behind him. He did not have investors. He did not have a family fortune. He had $6,000, a piece of land on a highway, and an idea about where the American economy was heading. That idea turned into a truck stop. That truck stop turned into two. 2 turned into 12. 12 turned into 96. And when Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway finally bought the company that Big Jim Haslam built with $6,000, he paid $13.6 billion for it. $6,000, $13.6 billion. That is the financial foundation on which Jimmy Haslam, Big Jim's son, the man who grew up watching his father analyze traffic patterns on highways before choosing where to build his next location, bought the Cleveland Browns for $1 billion in 2012. And that same franchise, the one he has publicly admitted was partly mismanaged on his watch, the one where the worst contract in NFL history was signed in his name and with his blessing, the one that went 5-12 last year while paying $80 million in cap space to a quarterback who did not play a single snap, that franchise is now worth $6.14 billion. It has gained more value in 13 years than most human beings will earn in 100 lifetimes. And yesterday, on the first day of NFL free agency, the man behind that franchise, the man carrying the weight of $230 million in regrets and $86 million in future dead money, authorized a move that the entire NFL world called one of the smartest signings of the entire free agency period. He brought in a former first-team All-Pro linebacker for $17 million, and the story of how that happened and why it matters more than just a transaction on a free agency tracker begins not in Cleveland, not even in America. It begins in Birmingham, Alabama, with a family that knows something about loss and about rebuilding. To understand the full weight of what Jimmy Haslam authorized yesterday, you first have to understand the context in which it was authorized, because this was not a franchise operating from a position of strength and confidence. This was a franchise operating under the shadow of one of the most catastrophic decisions in the history of professional sports, a decision that its own owner had publicly, on camera, described as a mistake. Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam came to own the franchise through one of the most dramatic business trajectories in American sports. His father, Big Jim, had founded Pilot Corporation in 1958 from a single gas station. Jimmy joined the company in 1975 and over the next 3 decades built it into the largest diesel fuel retailer in America. By the time Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, completed its phased acquisition of Pilot Flying J, it paid a total of $13.56 billion. That sale both validated the company's extraordinary value and provided Haslam with the liquidity to pursue his true ambition, owning a professional sports franchise. Haslam bought a minority stake in the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2008. Then, in 2012, he reached an agreement to purchase the Cleveland Browns from Randy Lerner for $1 billion, unanimously approved by all 32 NFL teams on October 12th of that year. NFL rules prohibited ownership in multiple teams, so he sold his Steelers interest to make the Browns deal happen. He sold his stake in a Super Bowl winning franchise to buy the Cleveland Browns. That decision, viewed through the lens of what followed over the next 13 years, is the original transaction in a long chain of decisions that have defined Jimmy Haslam's complicated ownership era. When the Haslams arrived in Cleveland in 2012, everything about them screamed success. Jimmy was a proven business executive. His wife Dee was a successful media producer. His brother Bill was the governor of Tennessee. Forbes valued the Haslam family at $3 billion. They brought exactly the kind of energy and resource base that a struggling franchise needed. Outgoing team president Mike Holmgren said Haslam would bring great enthusiasm and determination, qualities Cleveland desperately needed. Al Jazeera. But almost immediately, clouds appeared. On April 15, 2013, less than 6 months after closing the Browns' purchase, FBI and IRS agents executed a search and seizure warrant at the Knoxville headquarters of Pilot Flying J. The investigation revealed a 5-year fraud scheme in which the company had failed to pay rebates owed to trucking company customers. The company ultimately paid restitution and agreed to pay a $92 million penalty pursuant to a criminal enforcement agreement. Al Jazeera. The first year of Jimmy Haslam's ownership of the Cleveland Browns was conducted under the shadow of a federal fraud investigation into his own company. He was never personally charged. He denied knowledge of the scheme, but the optics were devastating and the distraction was real. And the football team, meanwhile, was going nowhere. Since officially taking over the Browns in 2012 and through the 2024 regular season, Haslam posted a 70-123-1 record as team owner. 5 different head coaches, 5 different men running the football operation, numerous starting quarterbacks. Fox News. 70 wins and 123 losses in 13 years. That is a winning percentage of 36%. That is a franchise that has spent more time in the lottery portion of the NFL draft than any team in the league during that period. And yet, despite all of it, despite the fraud investigation, despite the revolving door of coaches and general managers, despite the quarterback carousel that became the defining image of Cleveland football in the modern era, the franchise value kept climbing, from $1 billion to $6.14 billion. Because the NFL is a machine that generates money almost regardless of what happens on the field, as long as the building is full and the television contracts keep growing. But Haslam was not content to simply be a passive beneficiary of the NFL's financial machinery. He wanted to win. He wanted a Super Bowl. And that desire, that impatience that had characterized the early years of his ownership, eventually led him to the decision that defines everything happening in Cleveland right now. The Watson acquisition involved trading Cleveland's first-round picks in 2022, 2023, and 2024, along with additional picks, to the Houston Texans, and immediately signing Watson to a fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million contract. It was the largest guaranteed deal in NFL history at the time of signing, and Haslam drove it. While GM Andrew Berry and head coach Kevin Stefanski may have been part of the process, it was Haslam's willingness to go further than any other owner in the league, to offer full guarantees on a contract of that magnitude to a player whose off-field legal situation was still unresolved, that sealed the deal. Fast forward to 2025. Watson's cap hit was just over $80 million. His dead cap sat at $131 million. The quarterback had played 19 total games since arriving in Cleveland, and the owner of the franchise was publicly telling reporters that the trade had been, in his own words, a big swing and a miss. A big swing and a miss, said publicly, about a decision that cost 3 first-round picks and $230 million fully guaranteed, about a player who had posted the lowest total QBR among qualified passers since arriving in Cleveland. Watson's total QBR of 33.1 since making his Browns debut would be the lowest among qualified passers in the NFL during that same period. The Browns' plan to exit the Watson contract is entirely mapped out and completely unavoidable. They will carry dead money totaling $86.2 million, split between $34.6 million in 2027 and $51.5 million in 2028, after finally releasing him following this final contract year. That $86.2 million in dead money will likely surpass the record $85 million the Denver Broncos carried for releasing Russell Wilson in 2024 as the largest single-player dead cap charge in NFL history. The worst contract in NFL history, headed toward the largest dead cap charge in NFL history, on a team trying to rebuild, on a franchise being led by a man who had publicly acknowledged the mistake but was contractually unable to escape the consequences of it. And yet, and this is the part that the critics of Jimmy Haslam's ownership rarely give him credit for, he kept spending. He kept investing. He kept pushing Andrew Berry in the front office to build the best possible roster around the constraints they were operating under. As one analyst noted, Jimmy Haslam has spent more real cash money on player contracts than any of the other 31 NFL owners over the past 5 years. The notion that the Browns are financially handcuffed beyond repair has been overstated. More real money than any owner in the league, in the middle of carrying the worst quarterback contract in NFL history. That is a man who has not given up on his franchise. That is an owner who, despite making the biggest mistake of his ownership era, refused to use that mistake as an excuse to stop spending and stop trying to compete. And when free agency opened on March 9, 2026, the evidence of that commitment was on full display. The Watson restructure had freed $36 million in cap space. The offensive line had already been addressed with the Titus Howard trade. Guard Zion Johnson was signed to a 3-year, $49.5 million deal before noon. And then, at 7 p.m., with the business day winding down, the Browns announced the move that would become the most talked-about signing of day one. Quincy Williams, former first-team All-Pro, former Jets team MVP, 4 consecutive 100-tackle seasons, the waiver wire claim from Murray State, who had become one of the 3 best linebackers on the planet. 2 years, up to $17 million. But to understand why Haslam authorizing this specific signing matters so much, why it represents something beyond just a smart free agency move, you have to understand the full arc of what Quincy Williams went through to get to this moment, because his story and Haslam's story intersect at a very specific and meaningful point. Quincy Williams grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, the eldest of 4 children. His mother, Markeisha, was a first-grade teacher who would come to his football practices with a stack of papers to grade on the sideline. She was firm with her sons about academics. When Quincy's grade slipped, she walked onto the practice field and pulled him off in front of his teammates. No grades, no football. That was the rule. CBSSports.com. She died on August 10, 2010, from breast cancer. She was 37 years old. Quincy was 14. His brother Quinnen was 12. His brother Giovanni was 11. His sister Ciel was only 9. Newsweek. And then the consequences arrived. As a freshman in high school, just after losing his mother, Quincy struggled academically. By his junior year, he had lost 15 FBS scholarship offers because recruiters had little faith he would academically qualify for a Division I program. Entering his senior year, he needed straight A's to qualify, and he earned them. Murray State maintained their offer when everyone else walked away. He signed with the Racers because they believed in him when nobody else did. Yahoo Sports. At Murray State, an FCS program in western Kentucky that most NFL scouts visit only as a courtesy, Quincy was not even invited to the NFL scouting combine. He performed at his own pro day, running a 4.59-second 40-yard dash in front of whatever scouts had made the trip to Western Kentucky. Clutch points. The Jacksonville Jaguars selected him in the third round, 98th overall in the 2019 NFL Draft, the second highest pick in Murray State history. He showed flashes in Jacksonville, but was limited by injury in 2020 and waived before the 2021 season even started. Bleacher Report. Cut before his third season. Claimed off waivers by the New York Jets for essentially the waiver wire price, which is nothing. And what happened next in New York under the coaching of a man named Mike Rutenberg, who had believed in him from the first film session, transformed Quincy Williams from a waiver wire claim into something the NFL had never expected from the kid from Murray State who didn't get a combine invite. Over 4 seasons working with Rutenberg as his linebackers coach, Williams made more than 100 tackles in each of those 4 campaigns. Highlighted in 2023 when he recorded 139 combined tackles, 15 tackles for loss, and his first career interception. Al Jazeera. In 2023, Williams earned first-team All-Pro recognition. He was also named the Jets team MVP. The waiver wire pickup from an FCS school had become one of the 3 best linebackers on the entire planet. Fox News. Then the Jets changed regimes. The new front office signed Jamien Sherwood, a less accomplished player, to a 3-year, $45 million deal. Williams was benched. His brother Quinnen was traded. Cornerback Sauce Gardner was traded. Everything that had been built in New York was dismantled. Fox News. Williams totaled 83 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 7 passes defensed in just 13 games in 2025, missing 4 games with a shoulder injury as the Jets' new regime phased him out. Al Jazeera. And then Mike Rutenberg, the man who had made him great in New York, got a new job. Defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns, under new head coach Todd Monken. Working for a franchise owned by Jimmy Haslam, the man who had publicly admitted his biggest mistake and was now trying to rebuild the right way. Williams had made it known in league circles that he wanted to reunite with Rutenberg. And when Rutenberg landed in Cleveland, the destination was already decided in Williams' mind before a single dollar figure had been discussed. Fox News. On March 9, 2026, the first day of NFL free agency, Quincy Williams signed a 2-year deal worth up to $17 million with the Cleveland Browns, reuniting with Rutenberg and joining a defense that had finished ranked 4th in the entire NFL the previous season. Fox News.
Now, consider the business mathematics of what Jimmy Haslam's organization just executed. The New York Jets, acting without Rutenberg's institutional knowledge of Williams' value, had paid Jamien Sherwood 3 years and $45 million. The Cleveland Browns, with Rutenberg present, with the full understanding of what Williams could do in this specific system, paid 2 years and $17 million for the actual All-Pro. The Jets paid $15 million per year for a lesser player. Cleveland paid $8.5 million per year for the better one. That differential, $6.5 million annually in favor of Cleveland, is the value of organizational intelligence. It is the value of having the right defensive coordinator in the building, one who understands the specific player he is acquiring in a way that no other team in the league can match. It is the value of knowing not just what a player has done, but what he will do in your specific system, under your specific coaching, beside your specific other players. Together, Williams and Carson Schwensinger, the Browns' 2025 Defensive Rookie of the Year, form one of the most formidable linebacker duos in the entire AFC. A former first-team All-Pro and a Defensive Rookie of the Year playing in a Rutenberg-designed system on a defense that was already ranked 4th in the league, now getting healthier and more experienced heading into year 2. That is the product of Haslam's investment, not just in Williams. in Rutenberg, in Munkin, in Andrew Barry, whom he has retained through losing seasons and controversy because he believed in the long-term vision, in a rebuild philosophy that says we will not panic, we will not chase, we will identify the right people, pay them appropriately, put them in position to succeed, and let the results follow. Looking ahead, the Browns are projected to have approximately $100 million in cap space in 2027 once the Watson dead money begins to process and the contracts restructured over the past 4 years start to normalize. That number, $100 million in flexibility, is what the franchise has been building toward through years of financial pain. $100 million in projected cap space in 2027 for the franchise that signed Deshaun Watson to $230 million fully guaranteed, for the franchise carrying $86 million in future dead money, for the franchise that went 5-12 last season. That number, that projection for the year after Watson's contract finally concludes, is what all of the restructures, all of the deferred money, all of the cap gymnastics have been working toward. The $6 billion franchise absorbing the worst financial decision in professional football history and building a road out of it that ends in $100 million of freedom. Jimmy Haslam did not build a $13 billion truck stop by panicking when a plan went wrong. He built it by analyzing the situation honestly, acknowledging the mistake publicly, making the adjustments that were available within the constraints he was operating under, and executing the next phase of the plan with precision and speed. He called the Watson deal a big swing and a miss, and then he got back to work. On March 9, 2026, the work produced a former first-team All-Pro linebacker, a starting caliber guard locked in on a 3-year deal, a right tackle acquired in a trade, and the foundation of what could be the best defense in the AFC North by the time September arrives. All of it executed by a front office operating under cap constraints that would have paralyzed less disciplined organizations. All of it signed off by an owner who has been through federal investigations, franchise record losing streaks, the Watson disaster, and the slow grinding agony of 13 years of trying to build something that lasts in the most competitive league in professional sports. His grandfather's $6,000 became his father's truck stop empire. His father's truck stop empire became a $13.6 billion sale to Warren Buffett. That sale gave Jimmy Haslam the resources to buy a football franchise for $1 billion. That franchise, even through its mistakes and its losses and its chaos at quarterback, is now worth $6.14 billion. And on the first day of the 2026 NFL free agency period, the man behind all of those numbers made a move that the entire league is calling smart, precise, and exactly right. $17 million for an all-pro linebacker who wanted to be here. For a player whose story, from Birmingham to Murray State to the waiver wire to New York to this specific moment in Cleveland, mirrors in its own way the story of the franchise that signed him. Knocked down, kept going, found the right people, built something real. That is what the $17 million signing means on a $6 billion team. Not just a transaction, a direction. And for the first time in a long time in Cleveland, it feels like the right one.